along, and let's say that you were in a mall or an airport or something, and you came up to a set of escalators and some stairs, did you take the stairs? One person, great. Which one do you think most people choose, ma'am? Most people choose the escalator, right? Well, why is it that we choose the escalator? I don't really know, but I think this picture sums up kind of very well what I'm talking about. And this is real life. This is a real picture that we are naturally programmed to take the shortcut, to look for the easy way. But wow, success in anything that really matters most in our life is not about taking the escalator. It's about taking the stairs. It's about doing the things that we all know we should be doing, even when we don't feel like doing them. About 8 years ago in my life, I noticed some very negative trends that were developing, mostly around this habit that I had developed for putting off things that I knew I should be doing. Not that my parents wanted me to do or that my boss wanted me to do, but things that I knew I should be doing. And there's a word that we use for that in the business community, right? What is the word that we use for putting off doing the things we know we should be doing? Oh, good, you're all familiar with the concept already. That's great.
So one day I kind of woke up and I was struck with curiosity about this idea of procrastination. I said, well, geez, I wonder what the impact is of procrastination on my business. And I went out and I started doing some research, and I found an interesting survey of 10,000 U.S. employees who were anonymously asked the question, in a given 40-hour work week, how much time do you spend while on the clock on non-job-related activities? Survey says average employee self-admits to wasting 2.09 hours each day. Each day. So that's about a fourth of the time. So then I went to the U.S. Department of Labor, the Bureau of Statistics, and we found that nationwide, the average salaried employee in the U.S. makes $39,795 a year, which is about $19.13 an hour, which means that if we procrastinate an average of 2 hours out of every day, that our procrastination costs employers $10,396 per year. Per employee. Procrastination is the most expensive invisible cost in business today. And yet it's a cost that nobody talks about because it doesn't show up as a line item on our P&L. Right? It's not like we create a budget for procrastination. See, there's a much more dangerous type of procrastination that affects a lot of us in business. In fact, I first self-identified this form of procrastination. And it's interesting, being that I sort of study procrastination for a living, and our whole business is kind of coaching people through their fears and call reluctance and stuff like that. I needed to make sure that I wanted to create a new term that more accurately described what I struggle with, because since I write about procrastination all the time, I needed something that sounded much more academic, much more sophisticated, much more intelligent. So rather than calling what I have procrastination, I invented a new term that is two words that I really like to call creative avoidance. And creative avoidance is different because it's unconscious. It's unconsciously filling the day with menial work or trivial work. And what's crazy about creative avoidance is that I can be in the office long hours, right? I could be working all day long. I could be moving really fast on a lot of conference calls, answering a lot of emails, pushing a lot of paper, doing all of these things. And yet when I get to the end of the day, if I look back on what I accomplished with that day, if I am honest with myself, I will realize that I was nothing more than busy, just being busy. And distraction is a dangerously deceptive saboteur of our goals. More dreams are lost to distraction than to a lack of skill. And so much time in our lives, in our business, passed by before we even realize. And in fact, this is not only an expensive cost in our business, it's quite the cost in our personal lives. right? I mean, our doctor's been telling us for years that we should make changes related to our health. And we write it off as no big deal. But later, there's a big impact to that. Or there's some difficult conversation that we need to have with a loved one. And rather than doing that, we kind of sweep it under the rug. It's no big deal. And that piles up, and it piles up. And one day it explodes. And there's a cost to that.
So the question becomes that if procrastination is the problem, then really what is the solution? And I believe that the solution can be boiled down to one simple word. And I'm going to tell you what the word is, but before I do, I just want to warn you that you might not like it. Because while it is simple, it's not at all easy. And even though it is the truth about success, it's not really popular. And I'm pretty sure that nobody in here wants to hear it because, to be honest, I don't like to hear it. And it all comes down to this one little word: discipline. Discipline. The most successful people in the world have the discipline to do the things they know they should be doing even when they don't feel like doing them. And I was very fortunate to learn about discipline at a young age, because when I was just 5 years old, my mom put me into martial arts. And by age 10, I had become the youngest black belt in Colorado to ever get beaten up by a girl. Well, now we study and profile successful people from all across the planet, all different industries, all different backgrounds, and we try to find the common characteristics. And what we've noticed is that, contrary to popular belief, the most disciplined people in the world don't like discipline more than anybody else. It's not that they enjoy it or that it's necessarily in their DNA. What it is that the most disciplined people in the world have learned to think differently about discipline.
Now, in Colorado, most people know us for being, we're sort of world famous for the Rocky Mountains, right? And in the western part of the state, we have the Rocky Mountains. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that we also have the Kansas Plains. Anyways, so because of this unique sort of topographical layout, Colorado is one of the only places in the world that has both buffalo and cows. And the reason this matters is because one of the other places that I like to look for lessons about how the world works and self-discipline and so forth is to nature. And the way that these two animals respond is very, very interesting. The way they respond to storms has a really good lesson for us. So here's how it works. When storms come in Colorado, they almost always kind of brew from the west. And then they head out, to the east. And what cows do is very natural. Cows have this innate sense that a storm is coming. And so when the storm comes, the cows, they sort of get together and they decide to run away from the storm. So they start moving to the east. But the only problem is that if you know anything about cows, you know they're not real fast. And so the storm catches them pretty quickly. And instead of stopping, because they don't know any better, they continue to try to outrun the storm. And by trying to outrun the storm, they actually run with the storm, maximizing the amount of pain and frustration they experience from that storm. Isn't that stupid? I've got news for you. We do it all the time. How many times in your life have you known that there was a difficult conversation that you needed to have? How many times in your life was there a bad habit that you knew you needed to break? Here's what buffalo do. It's very unique, especially in the animal kingdom. Buffalo wait for the storm to cross right over the crest of the peak of the mountaintop. And as the storm comes over the ridge, buffalo turn and they charge directly into the storm. And they run at the storm, and by running at the storm, they run straight through it, minimizing the amount of time and the amount of pain and frustration that they experience from that storm. That is the same way that is representative of how successful people think. What I'm interested in doing is creating a shift in your mindset. is helping you change the way that you think so that you can think the way that these highly disciplined people think. Because I know that if we change the way that you're thinking, it will actually change your behavior for the long term. The principle is that easy short-term choices lead to long-term difficult consequences. And inversely, difficult short-term choices lead to easy long-term consequences.
And my mom sold Mary Kay Cosmetics, which means that I grew up around women who were constantly teaching me all of the different principles of success. It also means that I know more about makeup than I do about cars. I mean, ladies, every morning you stand in front of that mirror and it goes wash, toner, moisturizer, foundation, wrinkle-free eye cream, base eyeshadow, dark eyeshadow, blush, eyeliner, mascara, lip liner, and lipstick. Notice how it's all the women laughing and clapping. They're like, oh, he's kind of funny, we like him. All the guys in this front row are looking at me like, you know, this dude was a high school cheerleader. It was July 26th. My 19th birthday. I had taken a summer internship with a company called Southwestern Advantage. And for 150 years, they'd worked with college students, helping them run their business selling educational books door to door. And I was an accounting undergrad, so this was my first real sales experience. And I was selling books in Montgomery, Alabama. And I honestly never thought I would be a door-to-door salesperson. It wasn't like I wanted to be a door-to-door salesperson. I was a perfectly normal child. I wanted to sell Mary Kay. But I remember exactly what it felt like to be slammed. Knock, knock. We're not interested. Slam. But it had been raining the entire morning. I had yet to be in a single house. Door after door, slam, slam. A little while later, I knocked on a door and a guy in a wheelchair answered. His name was Lenny Jacobs, and I thought to myself, this guy doesn't have kids, he doesn't care about kids, he's just one more guy that's gonna slam the door on me. But rather than slamming the door, Lenny actually invited me in. And he was kind of sitting there in his chair, and he said, you're selling kids' books, huh? Well, come on in and talk to my assistant Lupe for a minute. I have to grab something. And he went off to get whatever, and I started talking to this woman, and the strangest thing happened. I actually started crying in front of an absolute stranger. This guy yelled at me, and this kid made fun of me, and it's my birthday. And Lupe looked at me. Her eyes were so soft, and I will never forget what this woman said. No hablo inglés. It wasn't funny then.
You see, success is never owned. Success is only rented. And the rent is due every day. Success is never owned. Success is rented, and the rent is due every day. That is the truth about discipline. And I know at first you go, oh, crap. But look, that doesn't mean your life is going to be one great big giant trip to the gym or that you're only going to eat foliage for every meal. The reason why this is important is because it shifts the mindset about the way that you enter into your resolution about what choice and change you're going to make in your life. You see, most of us come into the program with a 90-day mentality. We come in with a diet mentality that we're going to fix this and then it's going to go away. But that the power is in embracing the mentality about the journey that you are embarking on is not a temporary one, but a permanent one. And the beauty in that is that discipline is an appetite. And just as your appetite for food changes, so does your appetite for discipline.
What was once very difficult later becomes very easy. And here's how I know that this rent axiom is true, because take the word success out of there and put in anything that matters to you. Financial security is never owned, it's rented, and the rent is due every day. Being in great physical health is never owned, it's rented, and the rent is due every day. A fulfilling spiritual relationship is never owned, it's rented, and the rent is due every day. A happy marriage is never owned, it is rented, and the rent is due every day. The rent is higher for some of you than others. I just got married this last year, and one of my good friends said, Rory, well, get excited because every marriage works the same way. It starts with the engagement ring, then the wedding ring, then the suffering. Funny, but not true.
But
Funny,
the rent
but not
axiom
true.
is true, that success is never owned, it's rented, and the rent is due every day. And I know that can strike you as bad news sometimes, but I promise it's the most empowering truth of all. Because when you embrace this idea, this mentality of take the stairs, and you embrace this idea that we're not making temporary changes, but permanent ones, that I'm going to pay the rent every day, that I'm going to put my pride and my self-esteem in my work habits, we stop looking for the escalator, and we start embracing the things that will take us to the next level. We start doing the things that we know we should be doing, and we realize that life is not about these huge, grandiose decisions, but about the small, seemingly insignificant, nearly invisible choices that we make each and every day. So the next time that you are in front of a set of escalators and some stairs, take the stairs, because success means doing things we don't want to do. Thank you very much.